Hi, I'm Kent. I've been making some more plaster molds recently. A couple of videos ago, I made some molds out of an existing pot and an existing bowl, and I was experimenting with how to make the form around the mold. More recently, I made my own custom 3D printed pot that I then made a mold of. Through both of those, I learned that using this pink foam actually works pretty well for making the molds. So I'm low on molds right now, so I'm going to make some more, and instead of making some out of 3D printed parts that are interesting but take a lot of effort, I'm going to cast some molds of some existing pots. So this is one of the pots I'm going to make a plaster cast of. It's actually the same pot I used before. I have cleaned up the bottom a little bit. There's still a hole that I can just plug up with tape. I think it's a pretty good size for my kiln. Here is the mold I made of it last time. And there's a couple of problems. One is the lip broke already. And I also got a bunch of bubbles. So there were a few in the bottom when I cast it. And while it's covered up with clay right now, there were several that were formed in this edge here. This edge isn't very critical since it's just the top where the slip sits, but it makes it harder to trim the top of the lip. So that happened because I cast this pot right side up. I did it like this and then poured the plaster in. The better way is to turn the pot over and then pour the plaster on top of it so the bubbles rise to the surface. So I'm going to do that with this pot this time, so hopefully I can get a better version of this mold. I have a couple other pots as well. This is another one I've used before. I've cleaned up the bottom a bit better. Before there were some things in the plastic that were telegraphing through to the bottom of the pot. I just cleaned up manually, so hopefully this will be better. I took one of the tubs I use for mixing lots of stuff, particularly hold my glaze. I trimmed off the very top edge. I'll use this as a mold. It has a pretty good draft angle, so I think it'll work okay. And the last one is this pot here. I'm not sure if this one will survive the molding process. It's going to be an experiment. Particularly the draft angles on these vertical walls. I think they're slightly angled, but not by a lot. I think what might save me is there's a hole in the bottom, so hopefully I can push air into the pot and get it to pop out. So next, I'll be building some temporary forms out of that pink foam for the plaster. So what I want to do is turn all the pots upside down and then build a wall around this. If I did this all together, it'd just be one giant mold for these 4 pots. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put some dividers in here as well, but I think I'm going to put it all on the same piece of foam and cast it all at once. So I have a bunch of small pieces of foam. Some of these are leftovers from before and others I can reuse. So I think off camera, I'm going to go ahead and build up forms around all of these, and I will also hot glue these down. That seems to work pretty well. All right, here's my crazy mold of molds. I have 4 different pots inside of this foam contraption. I started with hot glue and it was going okay, but I was a little bit worried about my seal. So I went back with my foil tape that I've used a few times. I also hot glued all of the pots down to the surface. Hopefully that will stick and the plaster won't leak underneath. Some of these don't need to be filled up very far, others farther. These partitions are in here pretty loose. They'll probably leak between. I'm okay with that. And I have about an inch or so. I have about at least a half an inch on the side of each of these pots. This one over here is a little bit tight, but I'm hoping it'll be okay. All right, so this is going to take a lot of plaster. So I am going to put on my mask and then start mixing plaster in batches and fill all of these up. Wish me luck. I think I'm going to start with the shortest one. Try and miss the pot. That's good. Let's do its neighbor. This pot let go means I'm going to have plaster on the inside of the mold, and it wants to float. Crap. Well, the partitions worked out well, and I don't see any plaster leaking out the edges. So wind's there. This one I think I may have lost. All right, so I've got a little seedling planter here. I'm going to try and use that to submerge. I'm going to try and push this down evenly so it displaces the plaster. Clearly, some plaster got inside the pot. All right, we'll see what that does. Worst comes to worst, I lost that one. No big deal. All right, this has started to set. I pulled off the little seedling planter and the weight, and I have a big hole in the bottom of my mold. I have no idea what I'm going to do about that. I'm going to let these set the rest of the way. They're still really soft. Then I will take off all the foam. After that, I'll probably let them cure a while longer, and then we'll see if we can pull the original pot forms out. And after that, I have a big plaster mess to clean up. All right, I think this is set enough that I can demold it. All right, there are the sides. Well, good news, actually. I'll rock this around so you can see it. Piece of plaster. So none of the other pots had plaster leak into them. So this one had a little bit here, but all of these are good. So there's only this one here that was a real mess. There we go. Just needed a little bit of leverage. Oh, that's interesting. That came out. All right, here they are. 1, 2, 3. And number 4 is hiding back here. So I think what I'm going to do is spend a few minutes cleaning these up while they're still kind of soft. Okay, so let's set this one off to the side. Same thing on this one. Oh, fail. This one has a big bubble in the side. Crap. This one got too close to the edge. So I can make really short pots out of it and just not fill it up all the way. Or I try again later. All right, so thinking about these two here, this one has a big hole in the bottom from when it floated up. I made my crazy plug. And then this one, somehow I got it off center so that the edge is too thin. So unfortunately, I think these two are a fail. However, I think this one worked out pretty well, as did this one. And I've got my air compressor here. Let's see if I can get these to pop out. This one was already moving, so I have some hope for it. All right, that one, nope, not yet. Let's try this one. There we go. Yay! The bottom has a few voids in it, which is annoying. I was hoping by casting it upside down I wouldn't get those. All right, let's try this one with more air. There we go. And it came out. Cool. All right, here's this one. And again, the bottom's got some small voids. So I know from experience that casting these will result in bigger and bigger bubbles in the bottom. All right, so all of that work resulted in 2 new molds. So what are some of the lessons learned? Well, trying to gang up all the molds was likely a bad idea. I lost the one because it was too close to the edge. The other one I didn't glue down very well, which may or may not be related. Securing it down is very important. I know that they would be buoyant. 3 of them worked in terms of being secured down. That 4th one did not, unfortunately. I'm still getting these pinhole bubbles in the bottoms of my molds. I think this time that was just because I was rushing. I had such a large volume of plaster to pour in such a short period of time that I wanted to make sure that I got it all in. So I think probably the surface finish was suffered because of that. I think also both of these had rough surfaces on the bottom of the pot where I cleaned off some of the things that were in the plastic. I might need to clean that up, or I think you can get a suffocant that makes the plaster wetter basically and it will flow better. I think maybe I need to spray that onto the pot. All right, but at least I have 2 new molds. So this one I have done once before, but it had basically failed. The mold had failed. It's getting really porous. This one is brand new. I wasn't sure if it was going to release, and I managed to finally get it. So I hope you found that interesting. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below. I'd be happy to answer it. Or if you have any ideas on how to make this process go better, I would also be happy to hear that. Thanks.